Hi, good afternoon. It's Frederica von Stade. I'm here to rejoice at this wonderful anniversary of this amazing, amazing organization. I have known Rosemary for years and years, and I have worked with many of the marvelous coaches, pianists, singers that she has trained and have been on her faculty. And I just am so thrilled that she has championed the cause of great singing, and she's achieved it. Many of her students I've come across in different areas, at the conservatory, at all over the world, really. And I think she has achieved a level of excellence, of everything good about music. She not only creates wonderful, wonderful artists or helps them on their career to creating their own expression, but she set an incredible standard as a human being as well. And that's very, very much a part of what it is to be a performer and a singer, is a deep reverence and affection and passion for music. And my hat is off to you, Rosemary, with all my heart. And I hope it goes on, SongFest goes on for 25 more years and more.
Hello, I'm Grant Knox, a voice faculty member and past participant of SongFest. I was lucky to be a Stern Fellow many years ago and have some wonderful memories from that summer. Some of the people I met during that summer have become lifelong friends. One of my favorite memories from that summer was a performance of John Mustow's The Book of Uncommon Prayer. This incredibly complex cycle for solo vocal quartet and piano was a tremendous challenge. To have the opportunity to work with John to prepare the piece was a luxury, but not a rarity at SongFest. Each summer, composers of song come to Colburn to work with singers and pianists. Young singers spend years working on music written hundreds of years ago. There is nothing more exciting than singing a work with the actual composer in the room to guide you and share with you their inspiration and passion behind the music. It is an experience at the heart of SongFest. For me, this is one of the most valuable aspects of the program. Happy birthday, SongFest, and here's to 25 more years.
Hi, this is Amy Burton here to wish SongFest a happy birthday. SongFest has been so special to me and to John Mustow, my husband. We've been out there 11 years, 12 years, I'm not sure. But it is the most special time of our year. We look forward to it every year. And we always come home with so many wonderful experiences and ideas for recitals. Wonderful songs have come to me this way that I've performed myself or gotten ideas for my students. And I learned so much from the students, from the incredible faculty. I've made great friendships at SongFest. And it's just pure pleasure to watch my colleagues teach, to listen to all these different kinds of songs, all these wonderful, dedicated artists, just bringing song to life, all sorts of songs, whether it's Poulenc or Schubert or Debussy, Purcell, Jake Heggie, Libby Larson, John Mustow, Cole Porter, and. Song is a beautiful thing. I love opera too. I had a long opera career, but in a song you can go so many different places. You can be intimate. You can be different characters. You can change the temperature in the room. It's a very special uniting of voice and poetry. Well, not just voice. As all of you singers have found out this year, that music making just isn't the same without a fantastic pianist by your side. So I'm going to wish SongFest a happy birthday, and I'm also going to say thank you, SongFest, for some of the most fantastic summers I've ever had, wonderful experiences making music, teaching music, listening to music, watching song grow and thrive in this very, very special atmosphere. And if you're watching this video and you can make a contribution to help keep SongFest going, that would be wonderful. We have done so ourselves this year, and I can't think of a happier way to be able to contribute, except maybe actually being at SongFest and being with all of you in person, which I hope to be very, very soon. So thank you so much, SongFest, for all you've done for me and for so many wonderful singers and colleagues. And long may it wave. Much love from both John and me.
Hello and welcome all to this roundtable discussion on art song organizations. My name is Martha Guth. I am a soprano and then I am both on the faculty and the artistic administrative team at SongFest. I teach at Ithaca College and newly at the Collaborative Piano Institute at their Vocal Academy. And I also co-founded Sparks Wiry Cries. That's an organization that is interested in the preservation and advancement of art song through performance and research and commission of new works. I have with me a very distinguished and celebrated group of panelists, each with incredibly illustrious performing careers, and then each who have been on faculty at dozens of institutions. To introduce them all to you, I've tried to pull from some of those celebrated places so that you can get a kind of an idea of where they're all coming from. So in alphabetical order, I'm going to start with the wonderful Stephanie Blythe, who is the founding artistic director at the Fall Island Vocal Arts Seminar and the director of the Vocal Arts program at Bard College Conservatory. Sholto Kynoch, who is the artistic director of Oxford Leader in the UK and the pianist for the Phoenix Piano Trio. Kevin Murphy is the director of the program for singers at the Ravinia Institute, on faculty at Tanglewood, Indiana University, and at SongFest. And then Alan Smith, who's on faculty at the University of Southern California Thornton School of Music. He's the music director at Fall Island, coordinator for piano and vocal studies at Tanglewood, and on faculty at SongFest. And then, of course, the beloved Dawn Upshaw, head of the vocal arts program at Tanglewood, and the founding artistic director of the vocal arts program at Bard. Hello to all of you. It's beautiful to see you.
Hi.
Hello.
So there are a number of you, I'm going to jump right on in. There are a number of you who've actually begun festivals, educational institutions, performing organizations. I really wanted to ask those of you who have done that, what was the need that you saw at the time? What did you feel you were contributing to the genre, to the field at the time? Why did you do it? I think we can ask Stephanie Blythe, actually, right from the beginning for Fall Island.
Okay, all right. I started Fall Island actually with Alan. Mm-hmm. And Alan is actually the reason that Fall Island happened, was because it was my work with him as a student at Tanglewood that made me want to be involved in song to begin with. So he inspired the whole thing from the beginning. And also because we have this very intimate relationship as collaborator and performer, and composer performer. So we have we have a soul connection in that respect. And both of us have been really fed by song in our lives. And I can speak for you in saying that, Alan, I think. One of the things that I saw a need for is I saw a need for a place that singers that are not necessarily young artists can come and study song. So we started, our age limit started at 23, which is much higher than a lot of other places. And we also, there was a need, I thought, to look at American song in particular and new music and text to help singers become better communicators and to be more autonomous in their art making, and using song to do that, to become that conduit for that kind of music making and art making. And we didn't originally start out to do only living composers. We originally started out as just American composers. After one season, we realized that there was a real need here, not only because it was important for singers and pianists to study music in their own language and become better communicators that way, but also because there was a need to teach new repertoire. There was a need to put new rep out there. So not only, I think that one of the things that's nice that's developed out of Fall Island is we also have this program where we work with professionals. So we've had in the last 3 or 4 summers, we've had 4 or 5 professional artists, pianists and singers who have come and audited our classes for the week and also taken part in their own program, which is just keeps developing into a bigger and bigger thing, because it's a really important way to get the new repertoire out into the universities and conservatories. And so I think that that's been, for me, that's been one of the most important things. It's just making this, is creating this new canon and being a vessel for that.
Right. Alan, do you want to add anything?
Sure. Well, when, I teach at a university, and so at university, singers and pianists learn to do everything. You learn to sing in every language, opera, art song, anything, early music, anything you can imagine. So to have a program, Fall Island is 1 week long. And so to have a program that is short in duration, that is very focused in its repertoire and very focused in its idea of helping young artists to be autonomous, then it really is a much different and needed focus than what a student might typically get in a wider spanning university or conservatory training. So it's been very valuable in that aspect. Also, the development program for the professionals already has been very surprising, really surprised me about how people who are teachers at universities want to come together and do that and be fed in that way. It's a way in which art song is nurturing, and it's a way in which coming together is nurturing. And so the power of that draw to Fall Island, which that professional development at first was going to be a kind of a side thing, and it's still, but now it has more of an equal footing, I would say, and it is wonderfully revelatory of the need that people feel.
Well, and you're creating a network, aren't you, of pedagogues who can then go out and share the good news in a sense, right?
Yes.
Yeah, that's wonderful. Does anybody else want to jump in here?
I'm happy to say a little bit about having started the Oxford Leader Festival, but I wish I sort of could say that I had some very clear vision when it started out, but actually I founded it nearly 20 years ago when I was still a student, and for the first 5 years of its existence I was still studying, so the kind of urgent need for me was to perform at that moment. And myself and a group of friends began this festival just because we wanted to put on some concerts, and it was only then that it kind of sparked a realization of the kind of compromised nature of art song in today's world, and how rarefied it's become. And I think that was very evident right from the beginning with our sort of very small audience in those early stages, who came forward and said, well, you're the only people doing this. We can't, there's a handful of song lovers here, but we can't get it anywhere. And the whole process over nearly 20 years now of Oxford Leader has been one for me of kind of learning what the need is and trying to respond to it, and constant discovery in that sense. And I think discovery of the need of the art form to have people promoting it and pushing it, the need to explain to new people why it's important and vibrant, and then the need to keep nurturing young performers, as I've fallen out of that category myself. The need to look at schools and young people and say, why are you not taking music so seriously, particularly when it coincides with literature and can be so valuable to learning and life experience and so on and so forth, and really to kind of every category of person and across the spectrum, to see what need we can fulfill for people. So it's been a huge kind of learning curve for me and for everybody who's been involved with the festival. But initially that need was really just to answer your original question, what was the need? It was a kind of personal urge to just get out there and do something, and before my career had really begun.
Yeah, I wanted to pick up on something you said. I mean, you sort of described art song as sort of the compromised nature of art song. I found that really interesting, and I'd sort of love to, I don't know, delve into that a little bit deeper. To sort of hear what you all think about. Well, I don't know if it's audience development, audience engagement, and how we promote that, and how we use that web in a certain way of maybe pedagogues, performers, teachers, you know, scholars, researchers, anybody, administrators, to do that. I find it's incredibly tricky.
I think one of the best ways, sorry, not wanting to hold thought, but one of the advantages that song has is obviously being able to link outside of music through the text. And that's certainly something that in Oxford we've developed a lot. I mean, we're lucky to be in a university city where we can attach ourselves to other departments and institutions. And you know, when we look at settings of Hafez in 19th century Germany, we can actually take people and look at Persian manuscripts from the 13th century in the Ashmolean Museum, and we can go into the Bodleian libraries and pull out manuscripts, and we can talk about evolution and the Great Debate of 1860, and we can do it in the room where it happened, where the debate happened in Oxford, and we can talk about composers and poets and how they responded to arguments of science and religion. And I think anything like that is a great advantage of song. And I think when I said compromised, I just meant that I think that's the kind of perception that's grown. There's no reason why fundamentally it should be. In fact, should be the opposite. It should be the most accessible of art forms. But it's just kind of, I think it's something to do with languages. People don't like the concept of having to listen to things in different languages, a bit challenging. And it is a slightly strange experience. I think we can all take a step back and see that the idea of having someone singing to you very close up and very intimately about their sort of deepest emotions straight into your eyes is not something you experience every day. So until you get used to it, it's quite a tricky thing. But it has huge opportunities as well.
Yeah, I would agree. Those of you who've taken over the reins at different institutions, I'm sort of wondering, you know, when you came on board, what were the conversations that you were having right at the beginning of your tenure at those places? You know, were you interested in really just sort of maintaining what had been, you know, a beautiful place of performance and dissemination, or were you interested in moving the needle forward or differently in some way? Dawn, I'm wanting to look at you there.
Yeah, that's fine. When I was asked to create a program at Bard College at their conservatory, the conservatory was brand new, and so there had been no tradition there yet of how they were going to build their music programs. And I was actually first asked to create an undergrad program, and I realized that what I was most intrigued by was this age group and development, at least where singers are concerned, that's kind of on the verge of becoming professional. So the master's age group was a little more intriguing to me. And I think what I wanted to ask myself what could have been improved upon in my own experience. How might I have responded differently to my own music making in a different environment? And so my goal really was to create a program where everyone would feel safe to investigate and explore the medium, to the repertoire certainly, and to work on their skills, of course, but also to imagine the evolution of the art form and where it might go. And only they can take it someplace new. I kind of felt like if I could try to create a safe and inspiring environment for not only delving into the material that existed, but to try to understand why they were even bothering to share these experiences with an audience and to interact with people this way in a concert, that might be really interesting. Of course, that takes a fair amount of time to develop a program like that. But I think we were, the program got a good start in helping the singers and the pianists to learn who they were kind of as performing artists and what it was that they wanted to do with that, what they wanted to say.
Right. I think song actually is an amazing vehicle for that, for finding your own authenticity through music making.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. And what about at Tanglewood for you, and then for any of the many of you who are at Tanglewood or have been at Tanglewood?
Well, I'll start just by saying, of course, Tanglewood has a fabulous history, educational platform that has really done quite well for itself for a long time. So I think when I was asked to lead the program, what was very important to me was the spirit of collaboration and a very equal balance of singers to pianists, and that meeting place and finding repertoire that would speak to these young musicians that were having a real effect on their colleagues and on their audiences, in this journey of 8 weeks.
Right.
At Tanglewood, there's a balance of art song and opera and vocal chamber music experience. And so art song is one of a kind of three-pronged thing that singers and pianists do while they're there. So they get a really immersive experience. And they get to work with people like Dawn and Stephanie and get to know these people whose expertise in all three of those areas is really, really keen. And so they get to work at the highest level with international stars in that repertoire, who are also both Stephanie and Dawn are people who are very nurturing as mentors. They're also very challenging as mentors. Not only do they create a safe space for students to do their best, but they challenge always people to do their best. And I think that's really important. And arts, getting back to art song specifically, I think because song lasts, from 1 minute to 12 minutes, it's a compact bit of information that you can really focus on and immerse yourself in and find out not only things about that poet and that composer, but as Dawn alluded to, so many things about yourself. And we can't be really great performers if we don't have the access of knowing what we offer to that moment, that alchemical moment where that poem, that music, that singer, and that pianist have never existed in the history of the universe before. And so it's a very special, precious, and very proud thing to have created.
Yeah, it certainly is. Kevin, what about you at Ravinia, or any of the multitude of places where you are?
Well, Ravinia, I was really lucky that I inherited a program that had already gotten going in such a great way with Margot Garrett and then Brian Ziegler. And I think this is my 10th year, the 10th summer doing it. And I didn't have any ideas to change it necessarily. I think it's kind of evolved naturally. Certainly it's important for us to commission new works and to try to find other repertoire that's not performed a lot. I love that. It's also important for me to have this mixture of people. We have in our program, it lasts for 3 weeks, and we have 15 singers usually, and they come from both the United States and around the world. Always had a lot of Canadians but people from everywhere, and I love to have a kind of and 5 pianists who are actually staff. So even, you know, a lot of the pianists are already professional and out working in the world. Some are just exiting school, but they certainly are having this kind of intimate relationship where they get to rehearse their repertoire together for 3 weeks and then coach with great faculty and then perform. But I love the atmosphere where the singers and pianists can influence each other. Just it's fun to hear people sing in their own language. So I'm for me, it's not as important exactly what the repertoire is every summer as much as it is that they're kind of getting things in a way that allows them to explore their own creativity, their own natural expression, and feel like they're in a place, like Dawn said, a safe place where they don't have to think about opera auditions. They don't have to think about their 5 arias all the time. They can just kind of work on songs. And it's funny, 3 weeks, it feels like 3 months really, because each week is so packed. And I think you feel kind of the opera shackles fall off after a couple of days, and they it's not that I love opera, it's not that opera's a problem, but sometimes the pursuit, and Stephanie and Dawn know about this, I think, that the things that you got to do when you're a young singer to get to perform opera and to get to perform classical vocal music is a lot. And so to have an atmosphere where they can just kind of recharge and think of other repertoire, that's what's really important to me. So I feel very lucky at Ravinia to have inherited such a great program that was already running. And it's just, for me, it's a real thrill every summer, something I look forward to.
Right. I'm sort of interested, does it mean, when you're talking about discovering repertoire for all of these students, this is for anybody really, does it mean that you are trying to help people discover also their own identity, both as musicians, but also as an artist, in a sense? Do you feel like that comes into it? And I'm asking also specifically when it comes to sort of cultural explorations and things like that.
I think
has that changed anything? Has that changed anything in terms of where you're going?
I think everybody's different, and some people think that a certain repertoire is going to be great for them. Then they realize that maybe something else leads them to find what they really wanted to do. I mean, a lot of people want to sing something very dramatic and something that comes naturally to them, like let's say in their own language or a folk song, they discount. And I feel that process is so important to help singers find their equilibrium, you know, between their technique and their expression, and to find this natural thing that exists. And having the luxury of time where there's no set deadlines, let's say, save maybe a couple of concerts, but really where you get to explore. I think it's a unique way for a singer to really find repertoire that suits them and shows who they are as an artist.
I had
I
the
think we're
amazing.
having. Sorry, Alan. Go ahead. No, please.
I had the amazing experience of teaching online my song interpretation course, which was completely online and will continue to be in the spring semester for us here at USC. I asked my students if they had a particular language that they grew up with, a particular ethnicity, a particular culture, please to bring to the class at least one example of that repertoire in song that was so important to them. And I have to tell you, the incredible explosion of joy and relief from them, but also what that immersion into their own thought process, language, culture brought to the class. I personally will always do it in my teaching forever. I've always kind of done it, but I've made a real push at it, and it was tremendously enlightening. I'll never forget a person who is Korean who brought a folk song about a mountain in North Korea that they all desire to go to return to. And it was a pianist, and she couldn't coordinate it with the singer, so she played it and she sang it herself. And it was absolutely elevating to all of us. And then for her performance jury later, she coordinated remotely with a Korean singer in Berlin, of all places. So we're coordinating between Los Angeles and Berlin, a singer who shared the same joy and effervescence in sharing this repertoire, from not only from their voice, not only from their diction, but from their soul. And it was tremendously expanding.
I think what I to to um, to what Kevin said about finding equilibrium. I think one of the other things which is incredibly important. Was a wonderful way of putting it. One of the things that I find fascinating about song is it requires a responsibility from a young artist that they do not. It's a different kind of responsibility than preparing for opera. It's a completely different thing because opera is prescribed. You know, you're told what the character is. Yes, you can do research and find backstory and do all of your due diligence to really climb into a character, but essentially it is prescribed. And we also are, we can have opinions about what we want to do, but the end the end result, of course, always is you're in a production, and it's a particular production. You're told what you're where, you're told where to move, and you keep an eye on the conductor, and you are part of something that is extraordinary, no doubt. But as a recitalist, there is a greater sense of responsibility toward choice, repertoire, what you're saying, having some sort of reason behind what you're singing is incredibly important, and it develops a different side of your performing personality than in anything else you do. And I think it's important also to recognize that the whole idea of recital has changed enormously over the years. You know, this idea of a solo artist getting up and there's a pianist somewhere behind and playing along, but you're there for the singer, doesn't really exist anymore. It's sort of in the museum. Now it's much more, people are much more aware of this very intimate partnership. And it makes it so much more interesting to see two people working together in such an intimate way. And I think it's made the art form more desirable. At least for me, it's lovely to see somebody do exhibition skating. I love that. You know, I love to see a singer get up and sing their party pieces. It's wonderful, but it's much more interesting to see and become part of this very intimate relationship. And it just asks something different of us to be more specific communicators. And when we become that specific, I mean, when I work with Alan, I'm never more aware of this than when I work with Alan, because this is what he's constantly asking from me as a partner, to be more specific, to always have something motivated by something that's real. And I think that's why people who enjoy recital love it, because it feels real.
Right.
When you go to a restaurant and you've just sat down and you're ready to order and you're not sure what you want, and then you see a wait person bring a delicious dish to another table and you're thinking, oh, I wonder what that is. I think I want that. I'm going to go ask that person what that is, or I'm going to ask the wait person what that is. Really wonderful performances, including art song, are like that. When you observe what Stephanie was talking about between two artists, it makes me, and I think people in the audience want to go, I want to know what that is. I want to experience what that is. So I think that's a really huge part of it. Also, some recitalists, including Stephanie, now get the audience to sing at certain points. And I think audiences just absolutely love that. We gave a whole performance during a blizzard at Carnegie Hall, in which the audience was there and they were just raising their voices in joyful song, and it was a joyous experience. And so to involve an audience not only as listeners but as participants in that way is a really wonderful thing. We don't learn to do that in university and conservatory recital settings, and I don't know that it is the exact place to learn to do that in every recital that we give at a university or conservatory, but I think it is an important skill to let students know is available. And let's say they do a run out concert to a church or to a school, that's a very important part of doing, knowing how to communicate and involve an audience.
That's actually something we've been thinking about experimenting with, getting the audience to sing in Oxford. The audience don't know that yet, but it is maybe coming their way at some point. But it was interesting. It just made me think of one of our experiences this year. We had to put our festival completely online, and we did 40 events in a week, all live. And one of the kind of defining features of it for me right from the start of planning it was that we would try and get away from this thing that we've seen so many times of people standing on a concert platform, looking down an empty hall, pretending there's an audience there, and sort of delivering this slightly uncomfortable feeling recital to an empty hall. And I said right from the start what I wanted to do with the filming, which didn't work for everybody, but it by and large came off very well, I think, was to angle things such that the singer was just singing across the piano to the pianist, and there was this wonderful sense of communication. And I think that sense, Alan, that you were just talking about, of being sort of observing something that's like a relationship between two people, was actually, I think, sort of accentuated by that you could really see that, and it was like you were being invited into this inner sanctum. And I think that, obviously it's not the same as a real performance, but I think that got a little closer to something special for people watching at home, that you could feel. And I always feel that when you do part songs as well. If I'm lucky enough to work with a group of singers on some part songs, I'm always saying to them, don't do your thing of singing out to the audience, sing to each other and to me, and the audience will feel pulled in and drawn in to and invited into your creative process, and something that's really special.
It's funny, Sholto, because I just had this exact conversation with one of my colleagues who was getting ready to record something and was feeling exactly that. I don't want to stare into a void. And I said, look, you're married to your pianist. Why don't you just look at him? I love watching the two of you rehearse. Why didn't you allow the audience to feel like they're sitting in on a rehearsal? To see this kind of connection between the two of you, it's incredibly beautiful and, quite frankly, pretty sexy. I happen to think that that's a magnificent thing between pianists and singers. I always feel super sexy when I'm singing with Alan.
Thank you. Back at you. I remember years and years ago, I was asked to do a pre-concert talk before a Schubert concert with Ian Bostridge. And as part of my pre-concert talk, it was an all Schubert concert. I said that already. We all learned, me and the audience learned An die Musik of Schubert. We sang it first in English, then we sang it secondly in German. And An die Musik was not on the program that Mr. Bostridge and Mr. Drake had programmed. But I knew that it was going to be the first encore, but the audience didn't know that. And so the sense of recognition, the sense of an aha moment when these two artists came out and sang this song that everyone in the audience had learned, was remarkable. There's another way to engage.
Yeah. It's the kind of thing that when I lived in Germany for a few years, I could see all around me when you're talking about Schubert or Brahms or anything, and so when in coming back to the States or Canada, it's the kind of thing that I was really pursuing back home. This kind of like, how do we get that kind of recognition where it's so deep into the culture, it's so natural and right in front of you. That was sort of one of our goals, and my co-director Erica Switzer, that's something that she speaks about a lot as well. That's been really important for us. I'm interested also in learning about how programming for your own personal performances has affected the administrative side or the hats that you wear, and then vice versa. So like how those two things have influenced you all. Yeah, just the way that that's unfolded.
I think when you know what it feels like to be on that stage, helping to create that moment, it really makes it makes me a better teacher. I'll speak personally because I know what it feels like and I can pass that on to students. And then just explaining it can never be for a student what a student needs to understand it. A student has to do it to know what that feels like, both how enriching it can be, how frightening it can be, how all of the things that we may plan and practice to happen 100% may or may not happen, and what do we do in those moments. And so it makes me a better teacher and a better administrator. You know, we had a situation here this year in our online teaching of an undergraduate who normally would have been collaborating, an undergraduate pianist who would have been collaborating with singers and instrumentalists because of our online teaching situation was much more difficult. And so the student had asked, could they take a course that was something else, not collaborative related? And I said, absolutely, you can, but let me suggest this to you. They were going to do a course in pedagogy, solo piano pedagogy, which would have been incredibly valuable. I said, since this course that you're not able to access in the way that you normally would is related to collaboration, what would you think of doing a pedagogy related to collaboration? And so this is what the student will do in the spring. So it was a creative way to, unfortunately, the student won't be able to collaborate by playing as much with other people, but will be able to investigate the references that relate to that craft. So the whole semester then begins a kind of pulling back of a bow and arrow. That's what that is. And then after, when students are let out into the world again, that arrow is ready to fly with more speed, with greater accuracy, and things like that. So it's a direct answer to the question that you asked is, how did performing relate to being an administrator? And there's one really, really clear example.
I think for me, collaboration has always been the greatest joy and kind of revelation that comes from really having a strong partnership with somebody that you're making music with, and the kind of conversation that can happen, and what happens to the music making when you both come with a lot of knowledge and love, and you've done all your research and all of that, but you then are in a conversation and you're listening to each other and playing with each other. There's a back and forth, and so I think that really had a strong impression on my administrative work in making sure that there were opportunities for building relationships and partnerships and encouraging students and trying to build curriculum to enhance that, to give them the opportunity to not just feel like they're presenting something on their own, but that they're engaged. And it, I think, is, well, at least for me, very, very exhilarating and mind opening to allow someone else in while you're making music. So I think that's the biggest way that has really kind of bled into my administrative work in trying to create opportunities for young musicians.
You see that sort of that partnership, that collaborative element that is so unique and beautiful in song. Do you see that as a way for you to enhance your administrative work as well? So either whether it's reaching out to different partners and different organizations, or reaching out to, well, I suppose teammates or whoever you're working with. But is that also part of it?
Definitely.
Yeah.
I think when the relationships are really strong, well, it's heaven to be, working in a situation with someone who's, you feel like you're on a team that's all, the team's working towards the same end. Absolutely. Yeah.
Collaboration is musical collaboration is the very basis of a kind of skill set of collaboration that everyone, I think, on this screen has as a skill set, either learned in family or culture or developed over the years. And it's incredibly important. We sometimes call it team playing, which is a tired term, but I think the same things that I want to be as a performer in terms of being fully informed myself, of giving everything I can to the music while my partners do everything they can to give to the music, and the joint devotion that creates is totally applicable to university and conservatory programs as well, that we're all there doing that same thing.
I think for me, one of the things that I hope has remained an influence is that thing of having grown my festival whilst also sort of becoming a fully fledged professional myself. And so certainly we run a residential course for a week. I mean, it was sadly postponed this year, but we have 18 students from around the world who come and live with us for a week and have a sort of very intense session, like a lot of what you all do as well. And the first of those that we did was really the first year that I hadn't gone on one myself. And so when I was kind of thinking about how we would structure it and how who we would book to come and do it, it was very clear in my mind what the good and bad things were of the various courses that I had been on. And I hope that I've remembered those and always kind of kept them very present, just the kind of nurture that people need, and the idea that it's not good enough just to lay on a couple of classes each day for people. You've got to give them a whole experience, and you've got to let them sort of forget everything else for a while and just focus on this, and make them feel like they don't have to worry about all the sort of daily stuff. So I think we're very careful to do that. And then I think the other thing is also when we're auditioning people for that and for the young artist program that we run, to remember who you're doing it for and remain very focused on that, and make sure that if you're asking people to come and audition for you, for example, we always, if we want an in-person audition, we always pay travel costs for it, and we make sure we film it, and we provide the footage afterwards, and we take photographs at the end, publicity photos for people, and try and make sure that even if you walk away without coming onto our young artist platform, you have a really valuable, good experience, and it's public, and you don't get paid, but you don't out of pocket. And I worry about the idea of sort of making 100 people out of pocket in order to benefit 4 people seems to me not a way to support young artists in as wide a way as you can. So those sort of lessons have remained at the kind of heart of our programming.
That is brilliant. I feel like we all in the United States, we could definitely learn from that.
Absolutely. Wow. That's great.
It presents other challenges, it makes a rod for our own back as well, because obviously everything that has to be fundraised for, and there are other complexities as well, but I think it's worthwhile.
Well, of course.
With different models. I mean, at Ravinia, we're lucky to have everybody fully funded as well, 15 singers, and they get videos of their performances HD, which is great. And I know it's hard. A lot of other programs struggle because there's just so many people that want to do it, and there's a lot of overhead when they're a much bigger program. But the collaboration, piggybacking a little bit on what Alan said, and teaching collaboration, especially from the pianist perspective, I think is so important. And he runs a great program. We started one at the Jacobs School of Music not so long ago. And it's funny, but the things that I learned about collaborating, like when I was playing opera, for instance, and I would play for Dawn Upshaw singing Susanna at the Met, or Stephanie singing. We did some programs together in the Young Artist program. I learned so much about collaboration there and in school by osmosis, but I didn't have so much training. And it's wonderful, all these programs that have really bloomed all over the country and really all over the world now, to really teach pianists how to listen and to think. And those who aren't singer oriented naturally, let's say from the beginning, to see the light bulbs go off when they've been used to playing with a violinist, and all of a sudden they get hooked on the text and the singer. And I just had a former student who texted me last night, and she said and she's now in Texas. She never played for a singer until she came into our program, and she texted and said, "I've been listening to operas and art song for the last 3 weeks of break, and I just can't get enough. And thank you for exposing me to singers repertoire." And it's, I think it's so unique, this marriage of text and singing and music, that doesn't exist anywhere else. And it's a tough sell in a lot of places, as we know, and trying to keep it alive. But like everybody here, I think, has been kind of alluding to, when you are up close and near somebody who's doing it and who means it, even if you don't speak the language that somebody's singing in, when they're communicating in that language, and that becomes very interesting in and of itself. And now, of course, we have the technology to allow everybody to be able to access the text. And I know we're very thankful for Oxford Leader. I know all my students go onto that website all the time and look at the text, and it's amazing.
Yes, thank you.
It's just terrific. So,
that brings me to the question, when you're talking about young artists, for anybody who's sort of interested in starting their own program or doing something like that, to sort of take on that entrepreneurial hat. Where do you think the holes are now? Like, what needs to be done in order to keep things moving forward, to sort of like keep doors open, to, talk about, I don't know, crossing over lines in terms of, I don't know, genre or cultural divide or anything like that? Where is the need that we still have?
We need money.
Early on, money is always, but early on, education. I think people need to be exposed much earlier.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
I think also what living in the pandemic has showed us is that we're not going to concert halls, most of us, to hear this music performed live. So we're engaging it over the internet. We're engaging it electronically. This was true before the pandemic and will be just as true after the pandemic. And many younger people than I live much of their lives on electronic devices, machines. And so I think this is a huge way to engage students, that each of us on this call have uh, electronic communications of what we do in our various festivals, and that in some ways is going to grab a lot of people. But I love what Kevin just said about engaging them at younger and younger levels. We've been talking a lot at my university about about community engagement, especially young people, elementary school age, during the pandemic, but even before the pandemic, and how we're going to double down on it after the pandemic opens again. And there are wonderful people who are experts at this engagement, and who tell us that it's not just going to an elementary school and singing a Schubert song. It's going to an elementary school and getting the students to sing something that they know and relate to, and that they feel physically the joy of singing. They feel emotionally the connection to singing. And I so appreciate Kevin's word about starting that at a really, really early age. I am in my career, because I had elementary school music teachers. I will mention her name, Jackie Pride, who helped me love music, and my first piano teacher, Mildred Allen, who helped me love music. And that's where I was hooked at the ages of 6, 7, 8, 9. And so look at me, just a few years later, and their enthusiasm, their love for what they did was what nabbed me early on.
I think something that I feel in terms of going and working with younger people at that very early age, which I absolutely agree is so important, is to some degree not to worry so much about the kind of nurturing the next generation of performers. It's and in some ways not even the next generation of audience. It's just giving people that option at the start. You know, I mean, I think classical music generally has been something that people, they never get into it. I mean, very few people really get into it when they're really young, and then it sort of grows on them, and then I don't know, not that many people come to concerts in their 30s probably when they're dealing with careers and families, and then it's always going to be something that people come to a little bit later in life, and I think that's sort of fine, but not if you've not had the exposure early on. If it feels like a weird thing because you never experienced it when you were very young, then we'll lose that audience in, you know, however many years, it might even be decades, but that's really worrying, I think. And the principle we've taken with schools work that we do, which we always do with very small numbers, rather than trying to kind of drop in and reach 1,000 kids for half an hour each, we tend to work with, you know, just a few classes and then give them a really kind of in-depth project over what could be 5 weeks. In fact, this year we're trying to work, well, the plan was to work with the whole school over 2 whole terms, and taking a lot more than that as well. But it's all about sort of creative projects. So it's about writing their own words, writing their own music, while also showing them a professional singer and pianist and getting them to sing and learn stuff. And I think about sort of creativity and confidence and music making. And, you know, most of them won't end up listening to Schubert Lieder for sure, but some of them might, and definitely it will kind of enhance their general well-being and also their prospects of maybe later in life being one of our audience, and certainly we won't appear kind of alien to them.
One of the things that I've been discussing that really gets chatted about a lot in rooms like this right now is the role of the singer in the future, post-pandemic. What are we, you know, singer and the pianist? And, you know, it's funny to say we need money, but that is what we need. We need money. And one of the things that singers have to learn how to do is to talk about what we do and why it's important and why people should be giving money to it. Because what has happened largely, well, in the industry is that singers are taught to learn 5 arias, to get jobs, and then go where they're supposed to go and do their job, and then wait for the next job. Well, that's not the way it is anymore. It's not going to be like that. It's already started not being like that. Everybody, there's a myriad of different ways to be a singing artist today. And one of the things that's important is that we all understand there's a responsibility to music making that goes beyond learning the notes. And those of us who have started programs and who are working on programs, you know, I wanted to start Fall Island. What's the first thing I had to do? I had to raise the money. You know, I had to raise $35,000 for every summer. We didn't have an endowment. And so there, you know, you find ways to make it work so that you can make the music. But learning how to do this is a very important part of being an artist now. Being entrepreneurial is very, very important. Martha, you know this more than most, you know, because you're not just involved in Sparks and Wiry Cries. Sparks and Wiry Cries reaches out to other organizations and does a lot of crossover across the country and beyond. And they think that it's important that singers understand, and pianists, collaborative artists understand the totality of the art. Because when you have skin in the game, it becomes a completely different animal. When you are really passionate, I mean, starting a program, that's a passion project. You really got to want to do it in order to, and come on, Sholto, you've had a program for a while now. You know, that's fantastic. The Tanglewood has been around for a long time. It's a passion project. It started out as somebody's baby and has been nurtured along over the years. Same thing with Ravinia.
SongFest.
Hopefully, you know, SongFest, same thing. It's somebody's baby. Somebody had got a bee in their bonnet about getting out there and doing something, and everyone is capable of doing that. Everyone.
I mean, this is a great place to kind of wrap things up, because I think it's actually cyclical what you're saying, because this love of collaboration, this passion that we all have for the art form, is exactly also the thing that should be raising the money when it comes to it, you know, because if you can speak passionately about need and education and crossing divides or of any kind, you know, then you should be able to, and if you are a communicator because you are a musician and you are a storyteller, then you should be able to convince a donor, hopefully. I guess the issue is getting in front of them and searching for them.
And it's not just donors either, it's audience members.
That's right. And
you know?
I mean, look at what Rosemary's done with SongFest. It's incredible.
Absolutely.
Because of her passion, and she's brought us all together. I mean, she's just launched something from nothing and worked her tail off to get it to where it is, right? And it's because of her passion and her love for it.
That's right.
It's amazing.
And the artists are part of what feeds it too. The art that Rose, she is, you know, in the few online conversations we've had, it's very clear it's the art and working intimately with the artists that fuels all of that. It's really, collaboration is the #1 word. Sorry, Sholto, I apologize.
No, I was only going to ask whether in the US you feel you have the divide that I see here between the opera audience and the song audience. And in some ways, I think it's much harder to fundraise for song, because the people tend to come to song because they're genuinely really into it and engaged, which makes them very, very supportive and very keen, enthusiastic, but they don't necessarily have deep pockets and big checkbooks. And the people who maybe keep opera afloat, and I don't, this is definitely very generalizing and should, you know, speak carefully about it, but there are often, I think, people, there's a different society around opera, isn't there, than there is around song, and I think that is a challenge for song to overcome, to sort of make people think that it's something great to be involved with. But I wonder whether you find that same sort of challenge in the US that we do here.
I think what we have to start doing in the US is we have to do with concert repertoire, with recital repertoire, what we've done with restaurants. We have to make it sexy, like farm to table. Farm to table is very specific. It's boutique, and everybody wants to be involved. Everybody has become some sort of gastronomical success. We need to find that same kind of farm to table idea in song, so people understand it has that kind of that boutique sexiness. It's just, you know, I hate to talk about it in marketing terms, but that's exactly what it is.
You're speaking of a kind of terroir in a sense, right? Like a place, like ownership of a place, of a, you know,
It's a flavor. I find it delicious myself.
I'm so grateful for all of you. Thank you so much for speaking with me today. This has been really wonderful.
Thank you, Martha.
Thanks, Martha.
And everybody. It's great to hear all of you speak and hear the ideas. It's inspiring. So.
I'm grateful to you, Martha, for the invitation, and so grateful to Rosemary Hyler for creating this moment, that festival, and for bringing us all together with her passion and love.
So much.
Thank you, Martha.
Thanks, Martha. Great to see you all.
Good to see you.